If you are hearing this right now, pause for a moment and notice how you got here. Not the video, not the click, your life. The stretch of months, maybe years, where something has felt quietly unfinished. Where you keep circling back to the same question, the same ache, the same sense that you are standing just outside a door you cannot quite see. Introduction. You have probably heard the words before. Karma, soul contracts, divine timing. They get repeated so often they start to lose their weight. Said in captions under sunsets, tattooed in cursive, used to explain away both miracles and heartbreak. But almost no one tells you where these words actually came from, or that behind each one is not a vibe, but a law, a precise, describable mechanism that has been observed, named, and passed down by nearly every civilization that ever looked up at the night sky and asked why. The oldest name for that mechanisms comes from Sanskrit, Akasha. It means ether, not empty space, but the fifth element, the invisible substance. The Vedic sages said all the other elements were born from, the medium that everything moves through and nothing escapes. The ancient Egyptians had their own word for it, describing a record held in the presence of the gods, a memory that could not be erased. Christian mystics, centuries later, spoke of a book of life in which every soul's history was already written. And in the early 20th century, the theosophist Helena Blavatsky, followed by the trance reader Edgar Cayce, brought the idea into modern language as the Akashic Records. An archive, they said, not made of paper, but of vibration, a complete living record of every soul that has ever lived. What makes this strange is not that one culture believed it. It is that civilizations with no contact with one another, separated by oceans, by centuries, by languages that share no common root, kept arriving at some version of the same claim. Egypt never read the Vedas. The Christian mystics of medieval Europe never studied Sanskrit. And yet each of them, independently, described reality as layered, recorded, and connected beneath the surface in ways ordinary perception cannot detect. Modern physics has its own quiet echo of this. Quantum entanglement shows that two particles, once connected, continue to affect each other instantly across any distance, as though the space between them isn't fully real. No one is claiming this proves the Akashic field exists. But it is worth noticing that the deeper science looks, the less the old traditions sound like superstition, and the more they sound like an early, imprecise language for something real. Here is what most people get wrong about this archive from the very first sentence they hear about it. They imagine a library, rows of books, one for each soul, waiting to be pulled down and read. But the Akashic records as a passive ips were never described as a passive shelf of information. They were described as a field of law, an intelligence with structure, with consistency, with rules that govern how your experience is generated, not just recorded. You do not need years of meditation to understand these laws. You do not need to have read a single esoteric text. What you need is what you already have. The willingness to look a little deeper at a life that has, until now, felt like it was happening to you instead of through you. You do not need to arrive at this already convinced. It is enough to arrive curious, even a little skeptical, willing to test each idea against your own memory, instead of simply accepting it on faith. Most people who eventually find these laws useful started exactly there. Half doubting, half recognizing something in it they couldn't quite explain away, unable to fully dismiss the parts that lined up too precisely with a life they'd actually lived. By the time this recording ends, you will understand 6 laws that ancient traditions across the world arrived at independently. Laws about vibration, about consequence, about time, about the people who enter your life, about choice, and about where all of it is ultimately leading. And you may find that the events you once called random start to look, instead, like sentences in a story that was always making sense. You simply hadn't learned to read the language yet. Chapter 1. The Law of Vibration. Start with something you already accept without argument. Everything is moving. Not metaphorically, physically. Every atom in your body, in this room, in the chair beneath you, is in constant motion, vibrating at a frequency. This is not a spiritual claim. It is the settled conclusion of modern physics. What most people never hear is that the oldest spiritual traditions on Earth arrived at the same conclusion, thousands of years before a single particle accelerator existed. The Vedic seers called the medium through which all of this vibration travels Akasha. Not nothingness, but a living substance that holds and carries every frequency ever produced. Picture a tuning fork struck in a silent room. The moment it rings, every object nearby capable of matching that frequency begins faintly to hum in response. A wine glass, a guitar string across the room, another tuning fork tuned to the same note. Nothing touched them. The frequency did. This is called sympathetic resonance, and physicists can measure it in a laboratory. The Vedic tradition simply extended the same principle to the field of consciousness itself. Your soul rings at a frequency, and the universe hums back whatever matches it. This is why the ancient Egyptians treated the spoken word as sacred technology. In their understanding of Hika, the life force that animated all things, sound was never just communication. A word spoken with intention was a vibration released into the field, shaping what it touched. The Hermetic philosophers of Alexandria captured the same law centuries later in a single line that has survived to this day. Nothing rests, everything vibrates. They taught that the only real difference between matter and spirit was not substance, but frequency. Spirit vibrating at the highest register, dense matter at the lowest, and everything in your life somewhere on that spectrum in between. You have felt this law work even if you never had a name for it. You have walked into a room and known before a single word was spoken that something was wrong. A tension you could not point to, could not explain to someone who asked, but that your body registered instantly and completely. You have met people who left you feeling quietly depleted for reasons you couldn't articulate, and others who you'd known for 10 minutes and already trusted. None of that was imagination. You were reading frequency the entire time. The same way the wine glass reads the tuning fork. Not through information, but through resonance. Here is why this matters for you, specifically today. Vibration does not evaporate. It transforms. It travels, but it leaves an imprint in the field it passed through. This is the entire premise behind the Akashic records existing at all. Every emotion you have fully felt, and every emotion you have swallowed and carried instead, is a frequency you are still broadcasting. Every unresolved fear hums quietly beneath your daily life. The way a tuning fork keeps ringing long after it was struck, even when you've stopped consciously listening to it. This reframes manifestation entirely. Modern self-help reduced it to a mental exercise. Think positive. Visualize the outcome. Repeat an affirmation until you believe it. But affirmation without resonance is just a tuning fork, tapped once and set back down. The Akashic understanding of vibration goes deeper than thought. It includes the frequency of your unresolved grief, your inherited beliefs, the emotional residue of experiences you never fully processed. All of it is broadcasting simultaneously. Whether or not your conscious mind is paying attention, and the field responds to the whole signal, not just the part you're choosing to think about today. This is also why simply trying to think your way into a better life so often quietly fails. A person can repeat a positive affirmation every morning and still be broadcasting an old grief they never let themselves fully feel, still humming with a belief about their own worth that was set decades earlier and never revisited. The affirmation is a single note played on top of an entire orchestra that is still playing something else underneath it. The field does not respond to the note on top. It responds to the whole chord. And here is the part almost no one says out loud. This is not a system of judgment. The field does not grade your vibration as good or bad. It simply mirrors it back, the way a lake reflects whatever stands at its edge without opinion. The moment you stop asking, why does this keep happening to me? And start asking, what am I still ringing with? Everything about this law becomes usable instead of mystical. This is also why suppressed emotion so often ends up living in the body instead of disappearing the way we hope it will. The grief you didn't let yourself cry, the anger you swallowed to keep the peace, the fear you called being practical instead of naming it. None of that energy actually left. It simply changed form, the way vibration always does, settling into tight shoulders, a clenched jaw, a stomach that reacts before your mind even knows why. The body, in this understanding, is not separate from the field. It is the nearest, most immediate layer of it, and it will keep humming an old frequency for years, quietly, until you finally turn around and listen to what it's still ringing with. But if vibration only explained the present moment, it would be a small law. It becomes something far larger once you understand that every vibration you have ever produced. In this life, and according to these same traditions, in every life before it, leaves a trace that does not simply disappear. Which brings us to the law. Most people believe they already understand, and almost universally do not. Chapter 2. The Law of Cause and Effect. No spiritual word has been more flattened by modern use than karma. It has become a punchline, a hashtag stitched under a video of someone getting what they deserved. Karma will get them. People say, with a kind of satisfied smile, as though the universe keeps a scoreboard and eventually settles debts on your behalf. That is not what the word means, and it was never what the ancient traditions meant by it. The original Sanskrit term karma translates simply to action, not punishment, not fate. Action and its natural, unavoidable consequence. At its foundation, this is the law of cause and effect applied to the soul. Nothing occurs in isolation, and every action releases an effect into the field that eventually returns in some form to its source. It is not a moral court. It is closer to physics than to justice, as impersonal and as consistent as gravity. Think of it as an echo across a canyon. what you shout into the space does not vanish. It travels outward, bends around whatever it meets, and eventually returns to you. Sometimes instantly, sometimes so delayed and so changed by everything it passed through that you no longer recognize it as an echo of anything you said at all. The canyon does not decide whether your shout deserved to come back. It simply reflects what was sent into it, following the only law it knows. This single idea unlocks something that has puzzled thoughtful people for centuries. Why suffering so often seems disconnected from anything the sufferer actually did. Why a person is born into circumstances of hardship with no explanation inside this lifetime. Why certain fears, certain gifts, certain compulsions arrive in a person's life with no traceable origin. The traditions that worked most closely with the Akashic field describe karma operating in layers, not as a single flat ledger. There is the vast, mostly dormant record of everything a soul has generated across every incarnation, most of it inactive at any given time. There is the specific portion selected for resolution in this particular lifetime, the chapter. The soul is actively working through right now, which is why certain patterns feel disproportionately insistent, as though you cannot simply choose your way out of them. And there is the karma being created fresh in this moment by the choices you are making as you listen to this sentence. The Vedic tradition actually named these 3 layers because the distinction mattered enough to deserve separate words. Sanchita karma is the full archive. Everything ever generated, most of it dormant. Prarabdha karma is the portion actively ripening in this lifetime, the specific chapter selected deliberately for you to move through now. And agami karma is what you are generating today, in real time, which becomes tomorrow's sanchita. Think of the pattern that has followed you through more than one relationship, more than one job, more than one version of the same argument, wearing a different person's face. That repetition is usually prarabdha. Not bad luck repeating itself, but a single unresolved thread the field keeps representing patiently until it is finally met with enough awareness to be understood instead of just survived again. Understood this way, karma stops being a threat and becomes something closer to curriculum. Consider how anyone becomes skilled at anything. A pianist does not become excellent by being punished for a wrong note. She becomes excellent by playing it, hearing exactly what it produced, and adjusting. The dissonance is not a penalty. It is information. The instrument gives back immediately and honestly. The traditions that developed this law in depth insist the field works the same way. Every consequence is the universe answering a very specific question you didn't know you'd asked. What does this frequency actually produce? This is also why the traditions that took karma seriously never treated it as a life sentence. Every one of them, Vedic, Buddhist, Hermetic, agreed that a karmic pattern can be resolved, and that the mechanism for resolving it is not more suffering. It is consciousness. The instant a person genuinely understands, not intellectually, but in their body, the cause they set in motion and the shape of what it produced, the loop begins to close. This is why real forgiveness dissolves old pain faster than years of punishment ever could, and why taking clear-eyed responsibility for what you generate, without collapsing into shame, without needing to be the villain of your own story, is one of the most powerful things a person can do with a single lifetime. Picture someone who has walked into the same shape of relationship 3 times. Different faces, same eventual ending, same specific wound reopened each time in almost the same place. From inside Chronos, that looks like terrible luck, or worse, a personal flaw repeating itself out of some failure of judgment. Seen through prarabdha karma, it looks completely different. Not 3 separate failures, but one unresolved lesson. The field keeps presenting in a new costume, patiently, because it was never fully met the first 2 times. The pattern doesn't stop, because the person finally finds someone different. It stops the moment the person finally understands, from the inside, exactly what it was teaching. And at that exact moment, remarkably often, the pattern simply loses its grip. Sometimes before a single external thing has even changed. But even once you accept that every cause eventually produces its effect, a harder question remains. If the consequence is already set in motion, why does it take so agonizingly long to arrive? Why does the universe, having already decided, make you wait? Chapter 3: The Law of Divine Timing. Of all 6 laws, this is the one that generates the most private frustration, because we live inside a culture that has quietly declared war on waiting. Same-day delivery, instant replies, an answer to nearly any question in under a second. Our nervous systems have been slowly retrained to interpret delay as rejection and silence as evidence that something has gone wrong with the plan, with the timing, or worse, with us. The traditions that mapped this law understood time itself very differently than we do. The ancient Greeks had 2 separate words, where English collapsed everything into one. Chronos was measured time. The clock, the calendar, the version of time you're checked by if you're late for something. Kairos was something else entirely. The ripe moment, the precise window in which a thing becomes possible that could not have happened a single day earlier, no matter how ready you felt. Divine timing operates entirely inside Kairos, and almost never inside Chronos, which is exactly why it cannot be rushed by effort, and why trying harder so often produces nothing but exhaustion. Here is an image that captures it more precisely than most. Think of a photograph developing in a dark room. The image is already there, fully present, latent on the paper, the moment the shutter closes. But it cannot be seen yet. It has to sit in darkness, in a chemical bath, completely untouched, for exactly as long as the process requires. Not a second less. Open the door too soon to check on it. Expose it to light before it's ready, and you don't get to see it sooner. You destroy the image permanently. The waiting was never empty time. It was the only mechanism by which the picture could become visible at all. This is what the Vedic tradition meant by Ritu, the right season. Every harvest, they taught, has its season, and the wisdom of the farmer is not in forcing the ground to move faster, but in understanding exactly what is happening beneath the surface, while nothing appears to be happening at all. The Sufi mystics carried a version of the same teaching in their poetry about longing, that the ache of waiting is not punishment, but the very process by which a person becomes capable of holding what they're waiting for. And centuries later in China, the concept of Wu Wei described the felt experience on the other side of aligned timing. Effortless action, the sensation of a door opening on its own instead of being forced. Maybe you know exactly what this feels like from the inside. The job application that goes silent for months, right up until the point you'd almost stopped checking. The person who doesn't arrive until you've finally stopped organizing your life around, waiting for them. It rarely resolves at the moment of maximum desperation. It tends to resolve close to the moment you finally, quietly, stop gripping it. Not because gripping was punished, but because the grip itself was often the last piece of resistance still in the way. The Hebrew scriptures put a version of this into poetry thousands of years ago. A time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to keep and a time to let go, not as a suggestion, but as a description of how time itself is actually built. The traditions that developed this law point to 3 recognizable signs that timing, not failure, is what you're actually experiencing. The first is resistance without a clear cause. Doors that should logically open staying shut, despite reasonable effort, where the amount of force required to make something happen becomes wildly disproportionate to what it would actually produce. The second is what looks, in the moment, like a devastating redirection. The relationship that ended, the opportunity that collapsed, that later reveals itself as the only route to something better that could not have been reached the original way. And the third, once timing does align, is a distinct and almost unmistakable quality of ease. The right people appearing without being chased, the effort required feeling proportionate instead of draining. The sense of finally swimming with a current instead of against one. None of these three markers require special perception to notice. They only require you to stop assuming by default that every closed door is evidence of failure and every open one is luck rather than alignment. Once you start actually tracking these signs in your own life, instead of only noticing them in hindsight, the field stops feeling like something happening to you and starts feeling like something you can read in real time. The way a sailor learns to read weather long before the storm actually arrives. The hardest part of this law to sit with is also its most tender. The field, according to every tradition that describes it, does not run out of patience with you. It does not reassign what was meant for you to someone else because you took longer to become ready. There is no late seen from outside Chronos, only the ongoing question of readiness, which remains always, at least partly, in your hands. But timing explains when. It does not explain who. Why certain people seem to walk into your life at exactly the moment you needed exactly what they carried. And why some of those people arrive not to comfort you, but to break something open in you that gentleness never could have reached. Chapter 4. The Law of Soul Contracts. Nothing in these 6 laws is harder for the wounded parts of us to accept than this one, because it asks something that runs directly against instinct. That the people who shaped you most, including the ones who hurt you most, may have been playing a role your own soul agreed to before this life began. A soul contract, in this tradition, is a pre-incarnation agreement made between souls at a level of awareness far broader than the one you're currently operating from. Not assigned, not forced, chosen freely by both parties out of a form of love too vast to survive translation into ordinary human affection. An agreement to show up for each other in exactly the way each soul's growth would require, even when that role was difficult to hold and even harder to receive. Think of it the way a theater company thinks about casting. Long before opening night, before the curtain ever rises, every performer has already agreed, backstage, in full understanding, to play their part, including the roles that require conflict, betrayal, heartbreak. The character the audience is meant to resent. None of it is real cruelty. It is a story two people built together on purpose, because the story could not exist without every one of those roles being played fully and convincingly. From inside the play, of course, it feels completely real. That's the entire point. The actors have to forget. It's a play for the story to do its work. This is the origin of what the Vedic tradition called samsara at the level of relationship. Not just a single soul's cycle of birth and rebirth, but small clusters of souls traveling that cycle together, appearing to one another in different configurations across different lifetimes, sometimes as parent and child, sometimes as partners, sometimes as strangers who cross paths for 11 minutes and change the direction of an entire life. This is why you have met people and felt an inexplicable sense of recognition. A conversation that felt like a reunion instead of an introduction. The tradition doesn't call that imagination. It calls it memory, arriving without its details attached. You may already be able to name someone this happened with. The friend you met once, briefly, who ended up reshaping an entire decade of your life. The stranger on a train who said one sentence you still remember word for word years later, though you never learned their name. These encounters rarely announce themselves as significant while they're happening. They tend to look, at the time, like nothing. Small talk, a passing conversation, a person you'll probably never see again. It's usually only in hindsight, looking back over the shape of your life, that you can see the hinge those few minutes turned out to be. These contracts tend to fall into three recognizable shapes. Family, in this framework, is usually the densest concentration of contracts a single soul takes on in one lifetime, which is part of why family relationships so often carry more charge than any other kind. You did not simply end up with your parents, your siblings, the family dynamic you spent your childhood inside of. According to this law, that particular configuration of souls was chosen specifically because no other classroom could have taught what needed to be taught, for better, and sometimes for considerably worse. This does not erase the real damage a difficult family can do. It simply reframes the casting as intentional rather than random, which for many people is the difference between staying stuck in why my family and being able to finally ask what this specific family made possible in me. Contracts of growth bring you the mentor who saw something in you before you could see it yourself, the stranger, whose single well-timed sentence altered the direction of your life. Contracts of resolution bring the relationships that carry unmistakable charge. More intensity than the short time you've actually known each other should produce, because unfinished energy from somewhere earlier is finally being met. And contracts of service bring the people who arrive already evolved past their own personal curriculum, here simply to offer something to yours: the steady presence during a crisis. The wisdom that seems to come from somewhere deeper than their years should allow. The hardest contracts to accept are the ones written in pain. But here is what this teaching does not say. It does not say your wounds were not real, or that you owe your abuser gratitude, or that you should have stayed anywhere unsafe. What it offers instead is a different question to sit with once the pain has been fully felt and fully honored. Not, how could they do this to me? But, what did this experience make possible in me that nothing gentler ever could have reached? That question does not excuse harm. It simply refuses to let harm be the last word. Consider the relationship you may already be thinking of right now. The one that ended in a way that still doesn't fully make sense, that carried far more weight than the length of it seemed to justify. Maybe it was a friendship, not a romance, which somehow made the loss harder to explain to anyone else. This tradition would say the intensity itself was the signature, that some contracts run deep and brief on purpose, because the exchange they were built for doesn't require years, only enough contact for the specific transmission to occur. The ending, however painful, is not proof the relationship failed. Often, it's proof it finished exactly what it came to do. And every contract, this tradition insists, eventually reaches a completion point. A moment when what two souls agreed to exchange has been exchanged, and holding on past that point serves neither person's growth. Recognizing that completion and releasing it without needing the other person to apologize first is one of the most quietly powerful things a person can do with their own energy, which raises the obvious, uncomfortable question underneath everything so far. If so much of this was agreed to before you arrived, the timing, the relationships, the karmic thread you're currently walking, what exactly is left for you to actually decide? Chapter 5. The Law of Free Will and Destiny. This is the question that has divided philosophers for as long as there have been philosophers. Is any of it truly yours to choose? Or are you simply moving through scenes that were written before you got here? Both sides of that argument, taken far enough, sound completely convincing, which is usually a sign that the question itself is built wrong. Here is the distinction. The Akashic tradition actually draws, and it resolves the argument almost immediately once you see it. What gets fixed in the field is the coordinates. What stays entirely yours is the route. Picture a sailor whose voyage has a destination already written on the manifest before the ship ever leaves the harbor. The port is fixed, but nothing about how the sailor gets there is fixed. The course chosen through open water, how the sails are set against each wind, whether a storm is met with panic or with skill. Two sailors can be assigned the exact same port and arrive having lived two completely different voyages, because the destination was never the interesting part. A storm hits both sailors identically. The same wind, the same waves, the exact same weather. Neither of them chose or could have prevented. One meets it rigid, fighting the wheel, exhausting himself against a force too large to overpower. The other adjusts the sails, works with the wind instead of against it, and somehow reaches the same port, having burned a fraction of the energy the first one spent. The storm was fixed. Everything about how it was survived was not. The Vedic astrologers who studied this most closely actually sorted a soul's experiences into three categories. Some fixed regardless of choice, some entirely open and contingent on the choices made, and the largest category by far, experiences that are fixed in theme but completely fluid in outcome. The grief is coming, whether it breaks you or opens. You is not written anywhere. The limitation is real. Whether it becomes your prison or your discipline is entirely up to you. This is where free will turns out to operate at a much deeper level than most people ever exercise it. It is rarely most powerful in the big external decisions. The career, the city, the relationship. It is most powerful at the level of vibration itself, in the moment-to-moment choice of what frequency you meet your circumstances with. You cannot always choose what arrives at your door. You can always choose what you're broadcasting while you answer it. And that choice, repeated enough times, is what the field actually responds to. This is more practical than it sounds. It means the actual site of your free will is rarely the big dramatic crossroads people imagine. It's smaller and far more frequent than that. It's the 10 seconds after receiving bad news, before you decide whether the story is, "This is happening to me," or "This is happening for a reason I can't see yet." It's the choice, made privately, to respond to someone's coldness with your own coldness, or to hold your own frequency steady instead of matching theirs. None of these moments look like destiny being written. Each one, according to this law, is exactly that. You do not need a grand ritual to practice this. It can be as small as a single question, asked honestly, first thing in the morning, before the day has had a chance to hand you its usual weather. What frequency am I choosing to carry into today? Regardless of what today decides to bring me. Most people only ask this question in reverse, after a hard day has already dictated their mood for them. Asking it first, deliberately, before circumstance gets a vote, is one of the simplest and most consistently underestimated exercises of free will available to anyone in any life on any given morning. Several traditions converge on the same resolution to this old argument, describing it as the meeting point between will and grace. Not resistance to your path, and not passive's surrender to it, but conscious alignment with it. When a person stops fighting their own current and starts directing it instead, something shifts that the ancient Chinese called Wu Wei, the exact same effortless quality that shows up when timing has aligned. Except now it's being generated on purpose by a soul that has stopped mistaking its destiny for a cage and started treating it as the shape its freedom happens to be poured into. Believe only in fate, and you become a passenger in a life that was designed for participation. Believe only in free will, alone with nothing steering it, and you carry a weight no person was built to hold. Every hardship becomes your personal failure instead of part of a larger design. You were never meant to see all at once. The traditions that lasted held both. Destiny provides the shoreline. Free will provides everything about how you actually swim. Which leaves one final question, the one underneath all the others. If this is a journey with a fixed shoreline, moved through by a soul that keeps choosing again and again how it meets what it's given, where, ultimately, is any of it going? Chapter 6. The Law of Spiritual Evolution. Every law this recording has walked through so far answers a piece of the puzzle. None of them, on their own, answer the question underneath the whole thing. The one that quietly outlasts every other question a person asks across an entire life. Where is this actually leading? From close up, a soul's journey can look exhausting in its repetition. The same wound in a new relationship. The same fear wearing a different face. The same conversation with a different person. Somehow ending in the same place. Seen only from inside a single lifetime. This can look like a wheel spinning in place, going nowhere, which is precisely the experience the Buddhist tradition named samsara, the exhaustion of a soul that hasn't yet found the exit from a maze. it keeps walking in circles through. But the traditions that traced this pattern across more than one lifetime describe something different happening beneath the repetition. Not a circle, but something closer to climbing a mountain through fog. You round what feels like the exact same ledge you stood on before. The scenery looks unnervingly familiar, but you are not actually standing where you stood the last time. You are higher up the same slope, meeting a version of the old lesson that requires a more refined response than the last one did, because you are no longer the person who first encountered it. What looked like a wrong turn was elevations the whole time. This is why the traditions that reached the far edge of this law all describe the same eventual horizon in different languages, arriving at the same idea. The Vedic tradition called it moksha, liberation from the wheel entirely. Buddhism called it nirvana, the quiet extinguishing of the separate, grasping self. Christian mystics called it theosis, the soul's gradual transformation into likeness with the divine it came from. Different words, one consistent claim underneath all of them. The arc is not endless. It is spiraling somewhere on purpose. Even on the days it does not feel like it. And here is the part of this law that changes how the previous 5 actually land. Evolution, in this framework, is not a fixed speed process you are simply subjected to. Consciousness itself accelerates it. A soul moving through life unaware of any of this needs the same lesson to arrive again and again, in heavier and heavier forms, before the resistance finally wears thin enough for understanding to get through. A soul that starts paying attention, that begins noticing its own vibration, taking ownership of its own causes, recognizing timing instead of fighting it, honoring its contracts instead of resenting them, moves through the identical curriculum at a dramatically different pace. This is the actual reason the old mystery schools existed at all, from Egypt to Greece to the Sufi orders. Not clubs, but accelerants, designed to compress into one lifetime what unconsciousness would have taken many more to complete. Modern life still has its own scattered versions of the same idea, even where the original language has been lost. A good therapist, doing the work of an old initiator, a genuine spiritual community. Doing the work of a mystery school, even a single honest conversation with someone willing to reflect you back to yourself accurately instead of comfortably. The form changed, the underlying function, compressing decades of unconscious repetition into a shorter, more awake stretch of growth, never actually went away. None of this requires you to believe in past lives to be useful today. Even taken purely as a way of relating to this one life. It changes what a difficult year means. It means the version of you who could not stop repeating an old pattern last year, and the version of you listening right now, wondering if anything has actually changed, are not the same soul standing on the same ledge. You are higher up the mountain than you were then. Even on the days it does not feel like it, even when the fog makes this year look identical to the last one from where you're standing. Which means the fact that you have listened this far is not incidental. It is, by the logic of everything this recording has just walked through, a signal in itself, evidence of a soul that has already reached the stage where conscious participation in its own story has become not just possible, but necessary. You did not arrive at this recording by accident. In a universe run by the laws just described, there is no such thing as an accident, only timing. And yours, for this exact hour, was exactly right. You are not lost. You are not behind. You are precisely where your own unfolding placed you, mid-story, still being written with far more say in how the rest of it goes than you were taught to believe. The field has been listening the entire time you've been broadcasting. Today, a little more of you started listening back. Nothing about the last 50 minutes requires you to have believed all of it to take something useful from it. Even if you set aside every word about past lives and pre-birth agreements, you are left with something simpler and still true. That your frequency shapes what returns to you. That consequence is not the same thing as punishment. That some things cannot be rushed no matter how hard you push against them. That the people who marked you most were rarely accidents, and that whatever remains fixed about your path, how you meet it, has never stopped being yours to choose. That is where the real work begins.